Hi guys, welcome to a new video. It's a little different today. It's going to be a sit-down video.
It's a video that we've been discussing doing for about 3 years, and Lee has always made excuses to put it off, and we've had a lot of requests for us to do this video, so I've pushed and pushed and pushed and insisted that we do it and film it today, so here we are.
I haven't always put it off. I guess I have.
You have.
Because it's going to be one of those videos that I don't think
that his mum's going to watch.
No, my mum probably will watch it.
Let me just tilt this camera down, hold on a second.
I just think it's going to be one of those videos that is not going to roll off my tongue like
That's fine, because I'm going to go first.
And I've got to think about it, and it's personal to me, and it's personal to us. The coming out story is very personal to every person.
That's what the video's about. We've just actually told you.
Well, you'll have seen from the thumbnail and the title.
So everybody has a coming out story. Well, not everybody, but everybody.
A lot of people have asked us for it, and in our own way, we hope it helps some people.
We have shared it with some people on a different forum to videos, but we thought we'd do this now, and what a better time than in lockdown.
So you're going first then?
So I'm going first. So it's a subject which a lot of gay people have to come across at some point, and I was 24 years old and Lee was 21 at the time. I had...
Not that long ago.
Quite long ago. I had always wondered throughout my entire life how it would actually happen, how I would come to tell the first person. I don't know where to start, really.
Start at the very beginning.
So, I was 24 and I'd just met Lee. We were talking online, we hadn't actually met face to face.
A little backstory first, I would say. Like, when did you realise you were gay?
Probably when I was about 11, when I went into high school, and there were a lot of the teachers there which I quite fancied. So that's how I kind of knew. However, thinking back, there were kind of telltale signs from when I was younger, not sexual things, but just like fond of lads, do you know what I mean? When I was younger, it's just an awkward thing to say. I don't know how you say it, but it would just telltale signs for me. Thinking back, at the time it meant nothing, but thinking back, it was right. We've changed the battery. What was I saying?
I have absolutely no idea.
What was I saying? So yeah, I kind of knew when I was 11, and I kind of, thinking back now, there were just things that, like, more feelings of anything than anything that I knew when I was younger, probably as young as like 5 or 6 years old, that were kind of telltale signs to me that that's what it was. But like I said, not a sexual thing, not a fancying thing. It was, I can't describe it, it's a hard thing to describe, but I just knew. But at 11-year-old, it was like somebody flicked a switch.
I can probably describe it a little bit better. I kind of, looking back in hindsight, I always knew that I was attracted to men rather than women. And I'm looking back, I can see it back to my very...
Your Ross days.
To my childhood, really. I always thought that... It's hard to describe.
You'll come to your bit anyway. So I kind of knew at 11. Never told a single soul, but always worried and wondered how my life would turn out. And you always wonder, you always go through the things in your head, is when your parents find out, are they going to kick you out? Are you going to be on your own? Are you going to be living on the streets? As a kid, you come up with all the worst possible scenarios. And I kind of never told anybody at all until I was 24. I'd met Lee online, but I'd never actually met him face to face.
Was I the first person you'd ever told?
Yes. And then one day, I had been talking to Lee online. He'd gone for his dinner or something like that, and
you didn't even tell me.
I didn't tell him I was going to. It wasn't planned.
No, but go to the. You've skipped a bit.
I haven't.
When I started talking to Nick online, we met in a chat channel for Yorkshire, which is the area we live in. And we were chatting for days, and he didn't even tell me that he was gay. I had told you at that point.
No,
you'd not told me for a few days.
No, but at the point when I told my mum...
No, my point is, it took you a while to even tell me.
Yeah, because it was the first time I'd ever told anybody, ever.
Yeah.
And you weren't real at that point. You were still a name in a message box. So anyway, Lee had gone for his tea, and this was back in the day before we had mobile phones, so we couldn't text or anything like that. Everything was online. And I went downstairs, and my mum was sat at the table as she used to do, putting her makeup on, ready to go out. She went to Tiffany's in Wakefield, or Rumours, or whatever it was. And I opened the fridge, and I just blanked. And I stared into the fridge, and I knew it was going to happen. I'd not thought about it, I'd not planned it or anything. And I just said to my mum, I've got something to tell you. And then she was like, what? and I couldn't say it then. And then that was obviously I then made the first step, and I couldn't say it. And at that point, I'd started crying, and I was like hanging around her neck, and then she's like, just tell me, and I'm like, I can't. And so she knew, and she was getting more panicked. And at one point, she said, have you killed somebody? And I'm like, don't be daft, I haven't killed somebody. That's how tense the situation was. And eventually, I muttered the words. And her first response was, well, what do you expect with a family like this? And then she was like, well, it doesn't matter to me. She did all the usual things. It doesn't matter to me. And it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And then I ran upstairs. You were online. You just had his tea and came back on. And I'd said to Lee, oh, I've just told my mum. And he's like, what?
And we're like, what?
And that was it. And then after that, after I'd done the first person...
We met at this time.
No, we haven't met. No, we haven't met. And then after that, I then told people that I used to work with. I used to work at W.H. Smith's when I was younger, about 20 odd. And I told a couple of people at work, and told a couple of friends. Some of them couldn't handle it, so they weren't friends anymore. Was the big loss there, not a problem. So that was my coming out story. But it was a lot more dramatic than that. It felt more dramatic anyway.
Yours was easy.
It wasn't.
Yours was very easy.
Yours was done in a different
your mum
moment.
was just like, whatever, I'm off out to the pub.
My mum's pretty chilled out, completely.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad were divorced when I was 12, so I never had to tell my dad. Hi, Dad. He kind of knew from... He does know. Well, I've never confirmed it. I've never told him, so maybe he just thinks we're just living together, but there we go. But, so yeah, that's my story. Right, your turn now.
So...
This is far more dramatic for Lee.
So I always knew, you know, a lot of people say, how do you know you're gay? Blah, blah, blah. I always knew. Looking back, I always knew. Didn't really know what it was until I was
exactly what it was like for me.
I imagine it's the same for most gay people. You don't really know what it is until your teenage years, and then, I can't remember what it was, but at some point you just think, oh, so that's what it is, and that's what I am. And then, for me, I imagine, I don't know what it is like these days for teenagers and young people and even some old people.
I would imagine for kids these days it's more...
I imagine it's easier these days.
Yeah.
I hope that it's easier these days because it's more acceptable, and you know, a lot of people even think it's cool to have gay friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Back in... It was like my childhood was in the 90s.
Well, it was 1998 when
we met.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to do a bit of a backstory. So I always knew through my teenage years, I tried not to be gay. I tried to fancy women, and used to think to myself, could I live a lie? Basically, could I get married to a woman?
Could he?
And could I live a lie? And I just, you know, at some point I thought to myself, no, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to live that. I don't want to have that kind of life. So it's a scary time then, because you keep this secret.
You've got doubts and wonders, and you don't know how it's going to be.
Yeah, you don't know how your future's going to be. It's scary.
It's the uncertainty and this, and the point when you can't go back. You know it's going to change, and you just have to pluck up the courage to do that.
Story or your story?
I'm not talking about story. I'm just saying I'm giving people advice that are going through this.
It's like, until the day I came out, I was hiding who I was from the world, from my family, from my friends, and the real me never came out. So until I was 21 years old.
I think they probably knew when you had your Madonna fan, your Madonna fetish.
I always thought my mum and dad would know, and when I told them, they would know. But
do the story, for God's sake.
Right. No, because there's a lot of backstory to my story. I just
but we're not doing this history. We're doing this story.
The first person I ever came out to was actually a neighbour. I used to babysit her kid, and one night I put a piece of paper in her hand which said I'm gay, and I left it with her, and then I was fretting for days.
You've never told me this.
Well, there you go. It's a story to you. And she called me and she said, do you want to come down for a chat? And I said, yeah. And it
took days to read the piece of paper?
I actually don't. No, it might have been the same day. I can't remember. This was when I was a teenager. So I'd finally told somebody, and I finally had somebody to talk to.
The hard words to say, but writing it down.
They are very hard words to say, or they were back then. And then the second person I told, I think, was somebody who I used to work with. And she knew, I think she kind of knew anyway. And we had a real laugh at work. And again, I felt very comfortable because I told somebody.
Didn't you tell your Janine?
Can you let me finish my speed story? Thank you. So the first family member I told was my sister. It was after I'd met Nick, and I remember being in the car one day with my sister. She was driving, and I just said to her, "I take it you realise that me and Nick are more than just friends." And oh no, wait a minute!
So you told her years before.
I told my sister years before I met Nick actually, and I've almost forgot about this actually. I think she was in my bedroom one day. I was on the internet. And I think I just told her, and I can't even remember.
I can.
Her what?
Didn't she say to you, "Well, don't be telling my mum"?
Probably. She did. Probably said that.
This is Lee's story, and I'm having to tell it because he forgets.
I can't remember that bit actually. Yeah. I told her, and I know she was a bit like, "Oh God," because you remember this was like 20 odd years ago, so it was still in a time where
still taboo or whatever.
It was still taboo. You know, it wasn't like it is today. So my sister was a bit like, "Oh God." Because she knew at that time in
society
that it still wasn't there. We weren't there where we are today. So then when I met Nick, and I said to my sister, "I take it you and you know that me and Nick are not are more than just friends." And I think she kind of rolled her eyes and said something like, "Oh, okay,
it's coming again."
Yeah, my sister was worried how my mum and dad would take it.
Yeah,
and that's what she was worried about. Like myself,
I forgot to say, get to the bleeding story.
Like myself, I've told you this is a complicated story. This is why I'm not always wanting to do it, because it's a lot to offload. So my mum suffers from some of the mental problems that I suffer from.
Family traits.
Fine. Yeah, it's family traits. A bit of OCD, a bit of anxiety attacks, stuff like that. So I think my sister was worried how my mum would.
It will get there eventually.
Would take that. So that was my sister. So I had on this particular night when I finally came out to my family. I told a few more people at work and stuff like this, and some of the friends that we met together online.
Bob and Marie.
Yeah. We were driving to Nick's house one night.
When we used to spend weekends at his house or at my house, and we used to travel from Barnsley to Leeds.
So we were going on the motorway, Nick was driving, and we'd had an argument, as we always do.
We used to argue a lot. Not bickering, arguing back
then. And I don't know what we were arguing about, I can't remember now. And Nick had said something, and back in those days I used to sulk quite a bit. Don't anymore. And I was sulking, I couldn't be bothered talking to Nick, and Nick said, "If you don't talk now, I'm going to turn around and take you back home and drop you off."
No, I think what I said is, if you don't talk, by the time we get to Cedar Court on the motorway, I'll get off at the junction and I'll go back and I'll take you home.
And I was just in that particular mood where I thought, well, screw you, I can't be arsed talking.
So I did.
So he took me home, and I got out of the car.
Slammed it.
I slammed the door.
As he does.
And I heard Nick saying, "Get back in." But I slammed the door and I just thought, I can't be bothered, I'm just going this time.
So I went round the corner and basically just packed up.
So I went in the house.
Just to see what had happened.
And I was raging and fuming. And I just thought to myself, how am I going to explain this? And something in my head just clicked. My mum was in the bath. My sister and my dad were there. And I just thought, something in me just thought, I just can't explain this. I can't be just so...
No, didn't your dad say,
annoyed,
"Why are you back?"
Something like that. So my dad probably said, "Why are you back?" And I just said, "I'm gay and Nick's my boyfriend," and I ran upstairs.
And slammed the door again. And went into his bedroom.
I think I started crying. My dad came up and my sister came up and was hugging me, and I said it again.
And I was outside in the car.
My mum was in the bath all this time.
By which point we had mobile phones then.
So my dad went into the bathroom and me and my sister was in the bedroom.
And his bedroom was next door to the bathroom, so you could hear everything.
No, she'd not heard anything.
No, you could hear everything.
Yeah, but she hadn't. So about 5 minutes later, I just heard my mum go, "I knew it! I knew it!" And I was like, oh, either she knows it or she's like...
At which point, I'd rung Lee and said, "Come back out, I'm outside." And then he said to me, "I've told my mum and dad." And I was like, oh my God. So I sat there for another hour in the car, letting it all...
So my mum got out of the bath, I started crying, and then my mum, I had my head on my mum's lap, and she was like stroking my hair, and she was like, "Well, now I understand," she said. "Now I understand why you've been like you have been for the last 21 years, i.e. I never used to talk."
That's nothing to do with that.
I was shy. Yeah, but it was a little bit,
no.
And I was always like anxiety and stuff like that. So she goes, "I understand now why you've been like you have been." So that whole week was just a nightmare. Mentally.
My mum looked at it completely differently.
Yeah.
My mum was like cool about it. Lee's mum was like, "It's a phase, it's the usual things that somebody will either take it one way and celebrate it, or they'll deny it." And his mum basically
A little bit, denied it a little bit, yeah.
said it was a phase and
for about 6 months.
he's just not met the right girl and all that usual stuff that parents tend to say.
Maybe I've still not met the right girl, who knows. And so that's it, that's how I came out. And for that week, I went to work and...
It was more than a week,
I started crying at work to a friend who I'd told, and she was like, oh, let's just get you home. So I remember going home, walking through the door and crying, and saying to my mum, look, I've come home from work because I can't concentrate and I broke down at work. So my mum was like, right, we need to have a chat. So me, my mum, my dad and Nick had a chat about it all. And,
I can't remember that.
Yeah, you were there. I imagine it was a very uncomfortable chat. And we talked it all through. And my mum and dad said, look, we didn't realise, we didn't know. I was surprised that they didn't know, and they said...
yeah, but parents don't. They tend to see what they want to see.
I don't know, I used to like Madonna, Calvin Pet Shop Boys. I always thought they were obvious.
He had Hoovers and stationery and all that shit, and nobody ever knew.
Obviously, my butch side won over, obviously. It fooled everyone. So, that was it, basically. And it did take a while for... Not years and years. It did take a few months for everything to be normal.
For my mum, it was completely normal straight away.
Yeah.
And then we went and told my grandma, didn't we?
It's a little bit different for Nick's family because he has a lot of gay relatives in the family.
Yeah.
Like a lot. So it was more...
That's another story, but...
It was more... what's the word? The norm in Nick's family.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Got the thing. So then we went and told my grandma, didn't we? Because my grandma's brother, he was gay. And
what did she say? I remember how she said...
She said, we went to my uncle's, didn't we?
No, she said, I know cock.
Yeah, she did.
And she's from Barnsley. I know cock already.
And then we went to see my uncle, her brother, we used to call him Uncle. And she told him, and he didn't bat an eyelid, did he? He went, yeah, I don't know.
So all Nick's family was like, yeah, no, you're obviously camper than I am. None of my family knew.
No, I'm not.
So that's it. So I imagine 22 years later, I hope that it's easier these days, although I imagine for some people it's not easier. So what I would say to people that want any advice in coming out is maybe confide, like I did, confide in some good friends who you know won't tell people. And
anybody that doesn't accept it, they're not your friend.
Learn to be comfortable with it.
Well, if they're not accepted long term, they're not your friend.
Yes, it can take some people time. It's just a society we still live in, but it's not as bad as it used to be, thankfully.
Like some male friends that I told assumed because I told them that I fancied them. That's like the complete arrogance of it, and it was like, no, I don't fancy you. I don't have mates that I fancy. You just were there, and I told you. So, but some of them just couldn't get over it. So I just said, well, you're not my friend. So off you go.
Thankfully, 22 years later, we've never had any problems.
No.
Being who we are, and I
think we were on the verge of an era change, and we got in there in the new era rather than it being old school.
Yeah. So it's nice now to live in a world where nobody really cares. Obviously, there are certain people that do still care, but
get over it.
Get over it. It's just the way of the world, and it's just the way some people are born. Just like people have ginger hair, and nobody cares.
I think it's a little bit different than that.
Well, it isn't. It's just. Some people have ginger hair, some people are gay, some people are straight. It's just the way some people are born.
Right.
We can't do what about it. And the final thing I'd like to say is that I understand that even in today's society and today's age, that it could be and it can be hard.
It could work out completely differently. We've had two good stories.
It can be hard on a parent when a child comes out because, it's not what all parents want for their children. But I would say to parents that it's a shock to you, but your child has been living with that, living with the fear, living with the secret for however long they've been alive. So
and they're watching your every move for your reaction to see how you'll take it, and looking at the scenario that they've played out in their heads. So it's if you are a parent and your son or daughter does say it, then
just think of it from their perspective. It's probably the hardest thing they've ever had to do in their life.
Your reaction will be the first thing they remember in years to come.
Yeah. So it may be hard for you in that instance, but for me, I was 21 years old. I'd had 21 years of trying to get used to not fitting in.
The idea.
Not thinking that was normal. So in that instance, where you get told by a child, just try and think about it from their perspective, try and...
It's new to you.
It's
for
new
them,
to you,
it's
but
been turmoil.
There's been turmoil for a long time. So, I hope it is better these days. I hope that helps somebody feel free to ask us any questions you want in the comments below. We will reply. We've got
My story always seemed complicated until you just told yours. Like, you could write a novel with that.
I like to get it all out there.
Like, very thorough.
Thorough, yeah. But, you know, it's one of those, this is why I've not really wanted to do it. Not that I haven't wanted to do it, it's just that it's complicated. Every person's coming out story is different and complicated. Apart from Nick's, who's like, I'm off to the pub.
Which literally was.
So there you go. Drop us a comment in the comments below if you've got a coming out story that you'd like to share, so that other viewers can read it and maybe get some help from it. If you want to chat more, we've got a lovely community on the Facebook group, which is the Lodger Guys Facebook group. Come and chat on there, and I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you tomorrow for a proper vlog. Hit that like button, click the notification bell.
Don't forget to click the subscribe button. It's free to subscribe, and we'll be back tomorrow 6 PM for another video.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.